welcome also to Tom Slater, who's the editor of Spiked Online. Good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
I have to say, I'm kind of like losing the will on these sort of nanny state things that we're constantly getting at the moment in terms of, unemployed people being given weight loss jabs and things like that. What do you make of this story? Because the idea of this story, we are told, is that the Health Secretary says that there's a new class of medication, Wegovy and Ozempic. It could have, they say, he says, a monumental impact on obesity and getting Britain working. He's announced a £280 million investment from Lilly, which is the world's largest pharmaceutical company, developing new medicines and ways to deliver the treatment. I wonder what the pharmaceutical company that makes billions out of weight loss jabs is going to get out of finding a new purchaser en masse for their weight loss jabs. I know, it's a mystery, everybody. But it's a first real-world trial of the drug's effect on worklessness, productivity and reliance on the NHS. He says, as a country, we're eating more, eating less healthily and exercising less. Well, I'm not. I don't, by the looks of you, it doesn't look like you're doing any of those things either. The costs, he says, to the individual are clear, a less healthy and shorter life. That's a choice for the individual, I would say. Our widening waistbands are also placing significant burden on our health service, costing the NHS £11 billion a year, even more than smoking, and it's holding back our economy. Illness caused by obesity causes people to take an extra 4 sick days a year on average, while many others are forced out of work altogether. The key thing here is that you're not forced out of work by obesity. You've chosen to be out of work, haven't you?
Depends what line of work, I suppose. Swimsuit model, they might not have you anymore. These days,
that would be allowed on Sadiq Khan's tube, just not someone who looked Beachbody ready.
Absolutely. So these things shift. I do understand what you're saying. First of all, there's a question of priorities. What should the NHS be spending its money on? Should it be this cancer treatment or should it be weight loss jabs? That I completely understand. But there's also the kind of question of, is this really going to solve the unemployment problem? The idea that there's a sizable pardon the pun, amount of people out there who the only reason they're not going to work is because they happen to be overweight doesn't really make sense. There's also all kinds of jobs you can do at all kinds of weight levels, shall we say. But then there's also this question of, should the NHS be investing in these drugs at all? And that's one I have much less of a problem with, to be perfectly honest. In the US, there's actually started to be a decline in obesity, which people have tried to work out what could be driving this, and it seems like the rise of these weight loss jabs is probably the only explicable thing that is driving that. I'm personally not of the view that just because it's a kind of shortcut that makes it a bad thing. People who otherwise have been struggling to lose weight, struggling to do the right things and so on. I don't have a moral problem with saying to someone, you know what, you can kind of sidestep some of the sacrifices and the exercise and whatever in order to lose weight. It would be better for you, it would be better for everyone.
On one level, it's no different to say someone going for hypnosis to stop them wanting to eat more, which you can do. That's actually proven to work very well. The question is whether or not other people should have to pay for it, because that drug is £200 a month, pretty much, which they're all pretty much the same price. I mean, that price may come down over the years. The NHS, you'd think, if they were buying it en masse, would be able to get it cheaper. Except the NHS has no history of doing that. They'll probably end up paying more for it, knowing how our NHS is run. They'll be paying like £300 a month for it. But the key thing about this is, from what I can gather, and I know people who've used this drug, and I saw a friend the other day who was going, you should congratulate me, I've lost all this weight on this drug. I don't know what you want congratulations for. I don't understand.
Congratulate the pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, well done. But also, it does seem to me that, from what everyone's saying, is that it only sustains weight loss if you then change your lifestyle while you're losing the weight. So when you come off the drug. Now, otherwise, if you come off the drug, you go back to... It's like lots of diets work. Yeah. If you restrict the number of calories you eat, you will lose weight. The problem is if you immediately go back to eating more. But there are other things. Michael Mosley, God rest his soul, he just basically pushed a diet, which the Fast 800 diet, and I'd used it. He's been on the show a number of times. We got to know each other, and it worked. And he actually did the research into that diet on the basis that he wanted to prove it didn't work, and that these fast track diets didn't work, and it does. And I've done it. I've used it, and I kept the weight off, and it absolutely works. And you can lose weight really quickly, which is very motivating. And young skinny folk like yourself don't have to worry about this stuff, but as you get older, you eat the same amount of food, you put on weight. It's as simple as that. And we're talking like women, 2,000, 2,500 calories a day. I'm sorry, if I ate 2,000 calories a day, I would balloon. I mean, it's just not even an option at my age. Right, but this is the thing. You have to know how to eat healthily. What we're told constantly is we live in an environment where people are prevented from eating healthily, as if there aren't vegetables and cheap, and there isn't fish. I mean, There was Sky News yesterday. I watched this stuff just to annoy myself. They did a big interview with Wes Streeting about this, the Health Secretary. After all day, the whole day, pushing this whole line of like, it's awful that people aren't getting this weight loss jab when they need it. And they had a bloke who was 25 stone sitting there with his massive big gut, sitting there going, I need a knee operation, but they won't give it to me until I lose 5 stone. Well, yeah. Because there's no point, because your knee won't survive you being 25 stone, because human beings aren't supposed to weigh that much. Their knees aren't designed for that. And he said, but I can't lose weight. I eat a perfectly healthy diet, he said. Like, no, you don't. No, you don't. I mean, if we just put a video camera on you, we would know that you were eating 4,000 calories a day, mate. Otherwise, you wouldn't be 25 stone. And then they had a woman again. Like, she's saying, well, I've tried every diet and they don't work. Well, why not? Well, because I give up on them. Well, I mean, it's painful. What these people need is a tough talking to. If you want to lose weight, here's how you do it, and you persevere and you do it. I don't think that these jabs are the answer. I also don't believe these jabs are not without long-term side effects. There are no drugs that have no side effects. I think the idea that we're going to put the whole sodding country on weight loss jabs and everyone just carries on as they were, I don't think is going to end up being a good thing. I think we'll end up... I think in 30 years' time, someone's going to be covering on this show the inquiry into why was this ever allowed when there have been so many side effects.
By the sounds of it, from Boris Johnson's column when he talks about his foray into these weight loss drugs, there's also some short-term side effects, which is too early in the morning to be discussing.
Yeah.
But there is also, as a counterpoint, I, for instance, think it's entirely legitimate and understandable that the NHS would, say, prescribe vapes to heavy smokers to try and get them off smoking.
But you don't need to prescribe them. They can afford... If you can afford to smoke, you can afford to buy a vape.
But I suppose the point... Well, this is a very different kettle of fish in terms of these drugs are incredibly expensive.
No, they're not. No, £50 a week. How much do you think someone who is 20 or 25 stone is spending on takeaways a week? Because they're not eating an ordinary calorie-controlled... Not calorie-controlled, but an ordinary diet. You're not. You can throw 50 quid on one takeaway for the family easily.
Are we not looking at a potentially neat solution to a quite difficult problem and just dismissing it out of hand, though? For instance, obesity, as we were talking about earlier, has been a long-term issue in the US, and it's slowly starting to come down seemingly because of this. I also don't think that just because it's in a sense... it feels like more of an achievement in order to lose weight in the conventional sense, that makes it a bad thing that people have ended up losing that weight via another route. And if these things can be cleared and there's enough research into them to suggest there aren't going to be those long-term side effects, I really don't see the problem.
I mean, could there possibly be any incentive for pharmaceutical companies who, as we know, before COVID, never lie about anything, certainly not their trials, about the side effects or risks of these drugs? Of course not. Never, ever, ever. Could there be any chance at all that there is an incentive for them to spread out a drug that people have to basically go on for life to keep their weight off, which we're told has all these other benefits, and that you can put half the population on these drugs? No. I mean, you're talking about a multi-billion-pound incentive for companies which have proven to be untrustworthy again and again and again.
So this is an argument for never taking any other treatment ever again.
No,
I mean, this is
that's an argument for not taking them at their word. But so when we're talking about Lilly, the world's largest pharmaceutical company, announcing a £280 million investment, that's their investment in their own future. That's money down the back of the sofa for a major pharmaceutical company. And then to get... literally, probably millions of people being paid for on the NHS for this drug. I mean, come on, this is just their PR. This is a PR move by these companies to sell more drugs, when actually what we need people to do is live a healthier lifestyle, because it's not just the weight loss. And I know they say this drug, even without weight loss, it improves, things for heart disease and things like that. Actually, a lot of the problems we've got in this country right now are people being depressed and miserable because they're sitting around having sugar highs, sugar lows, carb highs, carb lows. They're not moving. Their bodies are atrophying. This isn't going to sort out people having, breaking hips later on because they've never done any exercise and their bone mass is completely ruined. But people's mental health is better if they are physically active and outdoors. And I love unhealthy food. I would love to live on McDonald's and kebabs and cake all day. I really would. But I know that I do feel better when I've had a healthy meal.
I'm kind of sensing, though, that part of the objection here here is, why is the NHS spending money on this?
Yeah.
But also that you see it as a kind of problem in and of itself, that people aren't getting the full benefits that would come from exercise, healthy lifestyle.
But that is still their choice. But I don't see why. There are children who can't get cancer treatment. There are parents fundraising to send their kids abroad to get cancer treatment because it's too expensive.
That is a very powerful argument against doing something like this.
And some fat bird can't put the pizza down, and some kid is losing out on getting their cancer treatment. Sorry, that doesn't work for me.
And that is a very powerful argument as to why this is a bad road to go down. My thing is that I have detected in some of the discussion this tendency to just sort of think it's cheating, therefore people shouldn't experiment
I couldn't care
with
whether it's cheating
all kinds of these drugs are suspect in some sort of way, and that I just don't think is necessarily
that's like, taking aspirin is cheating to get rid of your headache.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Some people do think.
No, exactly. Hey,
I've never understood it.
I know lots of women who seem to think it was a really good thing that they didn't take painkillers of any sort during their birth.
I
think those people are insane. I'm friends with those people despite this fact.
But they didn't earn it then,
I want as many drugs as possible. I want to be out of my head.
For their own pregnancy because they didn't take those drugs.
That's what it is.
According to you, kind of.
But the point is, once you're pregnant, there's going to be pain when you give birth. Yeah. I would take painkillers for open heart surgery as well. I think there's a difference between
I'm glad we're getting down to brass tacks there.
But again, is this going to be cheaper than giving people gastric bands and things like that? But again, I don't think that should be available in the NHS. I have offered my services many, many times to the NHS. I've got a spare room. It's very small, to be fair. The bed is a little bit narrow, so it might not fit some of these people. However, if you want to put people on a calorie-controlled diet and they're unable to do that themselves, I can lock them in my spare room and I will feed them the appropriate number of calories a day. I'll give them my iPad with an exercise app on it. Off you go, and I'll tell you what, you'll lose weight.
If that doesn't put someone on the straight and narrow,
I'm just saying these are options, and they're a lot cheaper, and they can pay me a lot less than it costs for those gastric bands and these weight loss jabs. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. There's so much more I want to talk about. Do get in touch. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. I have a funny feeling you may have opinions on this as well. If you are someone who is overweight, who has struggled for years to lose weight, and you are very cross with me right now, let's debate it. I'd love to hear from you. Let's quickly also, though, talk about national insurance. Government was very clear again and again and again. We will not raise taxes on working people. That means no increases in income tax, VAT and national insurance. Now, wiggle room there is that it's on working people as opposed to people who employ those working people. Employers' national insurance rate, currently I think 13.8%. Even the Institute for Fiscal Studies says that if that is the tax that goes up on October 30th in the budget, which it seems pretty much now is going to happen, otherwise the government would have said it wasn't going to happen by now, because they know how damaging this is, that is basically breaking a manifesto commitment. But the main thing, my main concern about this is they got wiggle room on that, but it's slippery. But my main concern on this is, if you are trying to boost growth, what you don't do is tax small businesses trying to hire one extra person, which is the margin, which is how you boost growth. It's literally the opposite of boosting growth, isn't it?
And then there's also the other knock-on effect, which is the people they already employ. If they're looking for that little pay rise, there's less room to do that. The idea that this isn't a tax on working people because it falls on the employer's docket is ridiculous, and everyone knows that. And it does look slippery. This isn't, unfortunately, anything new in politics. That if you look at the black and white letter of the manifesto, it gives. And
they
them just
knew
about
they
enough
did
room
that,
to
and
do
they were called, people like me and you and the Institute for Fiscal Studies were calling them out on that. And it was, but they keep telling us that they're different from.
Yeah, and people are either being reminded or realising for the first time that that was always nonsense, that just because they tried to maintain this kind of moral high ground, they're all as bad as each other on a lot of these issues.
Absolutely. Well, maybe everyone should just lobby Sue Gray, who's no longer in the Chief of Staff job, but apparently if you're Taylor Swift's mum, you can lobby Sue Gray and get your VVVIP blue light. I mean, that's what I get to work every morning, obviously. I mean, it's the only way to travel now, isn't it?